to Engage 8, the once daily segment, now returning daily segment, brought to you by the Blitz Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Kate Schwartz, joined by Jaden Kozak. This is a segment where we bring you the 8 minutes of the hardest hitting news from around the NFL. And this is kind of the perfect day to bring our segment back because we are confronted with Black Monday here on this January 9th. And we've already had some news come out, so considering we only have 8 minutes, let's dive right into it. So, first thing that we want to discuss, Lovie Smith is out of town in Houston, fired basically right after the game yesterday. I think it's a fair assumption to say that he probably knew he was going to get fired before the game. He was probably informed before the game. And he goes out and wins and prevents Houston from getting a number 1 overall draft pick, which is a hell of a something to watch. But what are your general thoughts on Lovie Smith's success or lack thereof in Houston this year?
Yeah, I mean, this was a signing that when it happened, we kind of all were like, yeah, he's going to be a fall guy this time next year. He got promoted from their DC. They didn't really make any moves to say that we're going to win next year. We knew that they were going to be awful. They were awful. And it just didn't feel like a hire that had a whole lot of like future planning behind it, especially with how quick it came after they let go of their last head coach. But I mean, I texted you guys right when it happened. I was like, I kind of think he might have been either tipped off or like they may have even just straight up told him, hey, we're probably going to go in a new direction next year. And he was just like, well, let's go. I mean, and he said everything that he needed to say as far as the press conference goes. I mean, what are you going to tell the players we're going to try and lose today? Like, you can't really tell your players that as a coach, whether you're going to be there next year or not. So they go out and they win. They really kind of mess up the long-term outlook of this team. But you may be even setting yourself up better for the future because they're going to be bad again next year, let me tell you. And there's a better quarterback prospect in Caleb Williams that's going to be at the top of next year's class. So something to look out for. But Chicago is very, very thankful for their former head coach.
Yeah,
Lovie
for
Smith.
sure. And we'll talk about the interesting situation that Chicago's in with kind of just falling into that number 1 overall pick and what they could do with that. But as I mentioned, Black Monday, we've seen a couple other firings that have happened and maybe some firings that are yet to come. But another big one that I want to talk about, Kliff Kingsbury, head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, along with the GM, Steve Keim. They are both, after signing large contracts just a year ago, right?
Yeah. Through 2027, they got their extension through.
God damn. But yeah, after just a year of those lengthy contracts, the Cardinals let both of those guys go. It's bad signs all over Arizona right now. Like, I don't really know where they go from here. Obviously, they decided that, I mean, it's not like you just gave Kyler that contract. It's not like you're going to blame him for the whole thing. But we really will figure out within the next couple of years whether or not it's just Kyler Murray that's the consistent problem. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's Kyler Murray because I still think, even with him struggling with this thing that Kliff Kingsbury's been doing, he's still probably a top 10 quarterback in the league. And, if you can bring a coach in that can unlock more of his play, dude, he could be top 5. He's got all the talent in the world to do so. I just don't think Kliff Kingsbury was that guy. We saw that it was a lot of the complaints from Cardinals fans came about Kliff Kingsbury. We saw them fall off towards the end of the season over the last few years. And then this year didn't really fall off towards the end of the season. They started bad and they ended bad as well. Part of that could be due to the suspension of Hopkins. Then when Hopkins comes back, Hollywood gets hurt. And then when Hollywood comes back, Kyler gets hurt. And then their season's over. But I think the even bigger thing here might be that letting Steve Keim go or him stepping away for health reasons. I don't know if you've seen the conspiracy theory about how he kind of looks like the offensive line coach that got let go for
Urban Meyer
bad stuff that he did while in Mexico City. Yeah, some Urban Meyer style things. And he kind of looks like that guy, and kind of the timing was a little weird there. But Keim's first round draft record has been really, really bad over the last few years. So it's probably a good thing for Cardinals fans that he will not be able to make their now number 3 overall pick in this year's draft. But if there's a job that I'm taking, this is probably like the one that I want, just because you've got the franchise quarterback in place that's not named Russell Wilson as of right now, of all the jobs that are open.
Yeah, for sure. I got to agree with that. Also, you just gave Hollywood a huge contract. So even though Nuke is probably coming towards the end of his prime, you've got Hollywood stepping in right there with the contract. Just signed James Conner to a contract, 3 years. So you've got some pieces to play around with once you head into Arizona if you are a head coach or a GM. But yeah, those are two of the big let go coaches that we've heard of today that were fired. But do you see any others coming before the end of the day? I mean, like I said multiple times, it is Black Monday overall. One guy that I'll throw out, and we were talking a little bit about before the podcast, was my very own Ron Rivera, man. Like, ever since 2020, we have not been able to figure out anything on the offensive side of the ball. It's just where the league is going right now, and Ron Rivera can't. He's run our defense fine, I guess, but we have one of the most talented defenses in the NFL on paper. So what else are you gonna do? But I mean, that we've been in the bottom 5 of every category on the offensive side of the ball since Ron Rivera became our head coach. Blames it on the quarterback, but we should be able to do something. So I think Ron Rivera might be headed out of town for sure. But do you see Matt Canada possibly headed out of Pittsburgh?
Oh God, I hope so. I sent out a tweet that I'm sure his family would not like to see yesterday. I didn't get banned though, so that's on the
Let's go.
positive side. Kept it enough so the filters didn't see. But yeah, I think Canada gets let go as OC. It's going to be interesting to see what the Ravens do. Obviously, they're in the playoffs, but Greg Roman comes to mind when we're talking coordinators. They're going to be let go. We obviously saw Browns defensive coordinator Joe Woods get let go this morning as well, and they've already interviewed our linebacker coach Brian Flores or they've reached out to get an interview for Brian Flores. But another head coach that I could see, maybe Dennis Allen getting let go. I mean, I'm just looking at the standings here. We already had 3 head coaches get fired in season, which I can't remember the last time that happened. But you look, Josh McDaniels with the Raiders, first year. McVay, we're going to see how that ends up. Arthur Smith, this is his second year. Dennis Allen, this is his first year. So a lot of teams that are missing the playoffs either have first-year coaches, Matt Eberflus with the Bears, or they're not really put in positions to the point where we need to fire this guy. But it's going to be really interesting seeing this. I think last year at this time we had 7 or 8 head coach openings, and this time we only have 5. And I don't know if maybe one more being Ron Rivera, like you talked about, but I don't know if we're gonna have too many more openings. So this might be kind of all that we're gonna see as far as head coach openings go for the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of this day plays out leading into the playoffs. But that just about does it for our 8 minutes of fame on Engage 8 today. But we'll catch you guys tomorrow on the returning daily segment. Expect a couple podcasts coming this week, but NFL football playoffs are upon us, man. Let's go. Catch you guys later. Peace.